Yo, it's Skepsis, and I'm here with the Maneki crew to talk about the current state of the music industry and the crisis that it's having.
Thanks for getting involved, mate. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, so let's just be frank about it. It's been 7 months or something like that. We're used to shooting events and we haven't done something since, someone such as yourself, you're used to doing back-to-back shows, festivals and such, that's all been cancelled. What do you think right now, given where we are at the moment, is going to be the long-term deep impact of what's happening right now if it continues to go ahead?
The music industry and the nightlife industry are kind of getting left behind, whereas a lot of the other sort of industries are back to work already, for me, my last show was in March, so luckily I was managed to furlough for up until October, but obviously a lot of DJs, self-employed people, didn't get to do that. I think we're going to start feeling the a lot of the health impacts have already happened, but the financial and sort of the artistic, cultural impacts are going to be felt for a long time. Like, I know a lot of the sort of smaller clubs and stuff, they're not going to make it through. They're not going to make it through this. Luckily today, some of the clubs did get a grant, which is good news. But obviously now, hopefully, we just need some people to fill the clubs. So it's
Yeah.
But just trying to keep grinding and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on the issue of focusing and grinding and such, does it ever seem like, if anything, ever so slightly futile at points at the moment? Because obviously you're doing all this work to create new tracks and such, and there's obviously the question that's just around you at all times, which is just, am I actually going to be able to play these live at any point in the next, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months?
It's definitely been challenging because there's no secret, obviously, that I make like club-driven music. So with no clubs, it's very hard to sit in the studio, because usually I can make something and then test it out live and then and you've got that kind of sort of inspiration to keep it going. But it's been very hard to make dance floor music with no dance floors. I had a track I released this year called Freak, which was one of my recent tracks that has done better. But me and Tier 7, who I collaborated with, we were kind of thinking, we knew the track had potential, but we were thinking, should we save it for after lockdown? But it's like, first of all, we don't know how long this is going to go on for, and second of all, I think as an artist, we've got to keep the content flowing throughout, so we don't kind of, everyone's in the same boat, but you don't want to get left behind. So we decided to release it, and I feel like it definitely would have more streams, etc., if everything was running as normal, but it still did well and it did a lot. So, and also obviously people kind of want things to look forward to in a time where there's not as much to look forward to, so I'm just going to keep pumping the content out, really, just working on album at the moment and stuff. So
If maybe you're struggling creatively like a lot of artists have, lockdown, it has also provided a good opportunity to make new music, just like you have. You've just shown us some of the tracks.
I've literally just been, and if I get bored of what I'm doing, I've literally, I make so many different genres, and just more for creativity, because I don't really put any of it out, but but that's kind of why I'm doing the album, so I can release different genres and stuff I wouldn't usually. And it's definitely a time to experiment. Obviously Tier 7 makes bass music. He just released a house record, got on the Spotify house cover of the playlist.
Huge.
So obviously a good time to be doing experimenting like that.
And earlier you mentioned about the clubs potentially opening, so even if they do open, it could be a case of kind of like how Lakota Gardens are doing sit-down raves. It could be a step up from that, and might not even be a full club. You might only be allowed to have clubs that are 200-300 people in, and that will be good for the ravers to get back. But the bigger venues, the print works, things like that, they just might not be able to really run properly for a while.
I don't know if you know, but in America, some of what they were doing when they reopened the bars and stuff was just 50% capacity. So I actually played that Lakota Gardens Aaron mentioned last week, and I'd say there was probably about 300 people there, and to be fair, they did run it very well. It was a good vibe still, it was safe, everyone was on their tables of 6 and stuff. Another layout I've seen is where people sort of have the the little pens, the little VIP bits that they all have, which is, I don't know. I'm glad that they found a way around the restrictions for now, and the Bristol Lakota one is run very well, it is, but at the end of the day, it's just not the same. Everyone's sitting down, that's not what it's about. In terms of clubs closing, I do feel like a lot are going to suffer. A lot were under pressure already, and in a way, I kind of feel like what's happening is, for years, like, there's been this battle with the government trying to build like houses and flats, you know, and a lot of the places, like, you know what happened to Fabric, but then it reopened.
Yeah, of course.
There's a lot of pressure. It's like they'll build flats near the venue, people will move in, then they'll complain that there's noise from the venue which was already there. The property market is more profitable than, you know, the nightlife industry, whatnot. So I feel like in a way the government are kind of using this as leverage to not shut down venues, but they know it will put them under more pressure, and then I'll watch in the end. I bet they'll build flats on a lot of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah,
kind of-
absolutely.
it's quite. This is just obviously this is not facts. Before anyone like tells me off or whatever, this is just like one theory that I saw that I can kind of, you know, make sense of.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's effectively how the property market works. Anyway. It's short-term game, and the idea is that, you know, people want to invest in a certain building and use it, and there's, you know, space within which to do so, especially when the venue itself isn't being able to stay above water.
Good they got the grants today, but I mean that's just the start, and there's so much work to be done, you know. I saw Camel Fat just played in empty Printworks as like I don't know if it's a protest, well, you know, just like a thing where they were
They
showing,
did a
like,
Central Mix, I think.
oh right, yeah,
So I
but
think it was like a Radio 1 thing.
well, I don't know if you knew, but Printworks isn't actually a permanent venue. It's going to go away at some point, which will be a massive shame, obviously.
God.
But
Oh, really?
it was never, it was never permanent. Yeah, it was like just a few years contract or something. It's a shame it won't be, but definitely, unfortunately, a lot of people who are full-time sort of artists, whether it be music, you know, video, photo, content, whatnot. You know, they were just getting by full-time, which is great because they're living their dream, you know. But now they've obviously had to go and find work elsewhere because it's quite a scary situation, you know, when you're just getting told things about like go and retrain and whatnot or whatever.
Yeah.
There's the
Absolutely.
lighting technicians, all the crew
Yeah,
members,
exactly.
like that's what people don't realise. There's a rave where someone like Skepsis might be playing, but if you think about everyone else who's actually in the building, they're working and making it happen.
Behind the scenes.
There's
Yeah.
so many people that it affects, and
Really.
they've done the protests, and it's literally not really resulted in anything. Like a lot of the event staff really have had minimal support.
I mean, obviously there was that thing about what Rishi Sunak said, and I mean, even if he was misquoted, I think it was good because it piled the pressure on him to respond and say that we're going to help the arts, even if, you know, it wasn't exact. But that's good, and I think in a way it is getting noticed still. And I saw that Germany just gave their arts sector a 50 billion support package. So I mean, hopefully the government will see what's going on.
Yeah, we'll reciprocate that.
Probably a couple of months later, as they usually do.
What's your opinion on what people are saying about, you know, illegal raves and such? I've seen some people talk about how there's going to be a huge spate of illegal raves that are going to start.
Yeah, and funnily enough, I actually saw that today, and I saw Mike Skinner from the Streets posted something. I think it was obviously a joke with a hint of like truth. He was like, I'm retraining as an illegal rave DJ. I don't know, it's a hard one because you've got to think ethically about the virus as well. Like, until a vaccine comes, and that's a whole nother kettle of fish, then it's going to be really hard to balance ethical, financial, cultural, you know, like, because I saw a video of a really packed rave in London. You see, I sent you that.
Yeah.
It was like literally fucking ramrod, but now you just see things so differently. You're like, flipping heck, they're all really close to, you know, like you see videos of raves from before, and like it's like it looks so alien to me now. It's like what like
You're looking at it through a different lens.
It's like, that's
you
so-
know,
masks.
yeah, exactly. Like you from a year ago,
Yeah.
that's absolutely perfect. But now, you know, that's a genuine health concern. It's the idea of trying to, like, you know, we're trying to get back to that.
how do we get back to that if we don't have a cure for this?
Yeah.
Or do we just try and I don't know, the vaccine, I don't know when it will come. Apparently it takes years to get a proper one. Some people are saying next year, but until then, I mean, a lot of people wore masks in raves and events already, you know, like, so if everyone wore a mask, maybe if they had limited capacity, you know, and people tried to adhere a little bit, I feel like it really wouldn't be much of a problem at all. And like I think I saw a stat, and it was like 40% of the transmissions are in schools, like, and literally like less than 10% in the hospitality sector. And if you think about it, they did the Eat Out to Help Out, and that didn't do a spike. Schools go back, massive spike. So it's like, just kind of shows
Kids are just
Kids can't control what they're doing. Like, they're not aware of their actions as much. Obviously, a child is much more likely to just touch everything and anything that's around them, and it just spreads easier.
We are willing to take every precaution necessary to ensure that we can still film, you can still play, and everyone can still have a good time. And it's trying to make people understand that that's actually what we're going for. And it's not just a can we open the clubs up because we just want to jump around and stuff and release our inhibitions. It's actually this is very much a big part of our lives, especially for somebody such as yourself who has made a living doing it.
And one kind of argument I've seen is like obviously staying shut will probably save a few cases or whatnot, but then there's also the aspect of like mental health of the industry not being open and how that's affecting people. I know I felt a bit lost recently, and staying at home and continuing on this like path with no end sight versus opening back up and risking getting a few more cases. It's also that's another like kind of ethical balance as well, but I don't think the government would really think about that, too much.
It's an escape for so many people, and obviously, not trying to make any assumptions here, but I'm guessing most of the MPs aren't ravers that go out a lot like that. So yeah, they can't really relate, and they wouldn't necessarily understand how it's an escape for so many people. Literally, tens of thousands of people will be going to a rave.
Obviously it's the 5th biggest industry in the UK, and like obviously if they want to kind of lock off the arts sector, like I just would challenge anyone who supports that view to try not to listen to any music or watch any films and see how your life is. Like it's really it's essential, but in a non-essential way, kind of, which is why it's overlooked. So
yeah, but I mean, on the idea of the whole kind of art sector, we've mentioned the relief packages that come out to clubs and some venues. I noticed that actually most of the relief is going towards the kind of more, I guess, the more sort of archetypal, sort of traditional arts like theatre and such. I mean, would you think that there might be a kind of, I guess, a sort of tiering system about how the government treats the arts? And at the top of the tree is somebody that's putting on a Macbeth, and somebody who's playing bass lines to people between the ages of 16 and 23. That's going to be the last person to get the cash, and I fear that might be a case really as well.
I mean, it could be, and like a lot of what we're campaigning for, it doesn't fit the government sort of. Their archetype of society, like square, like no like nighttime raving. Remember when Theresa May was saying, the naughtiest thing we've ever done is run through like a field or something like that, and it just doesn't really fit with their narrative, So I do feel like to some extent they're not as bothered because it doesn't affect them. At the end of the day, like financial rules everything, like money rules everything. So that's just like linked back to what I said about the properties as well, and like. I mean, I do feel like it's very, very neglected because, they're also not in touch, like you said, not ravers and whatnot, and stuff. But it's not just ravers, it's like concert goers and everything as well. And I do feel like they should kind of. Well, there's a couple of people who are, big names who are like representing this sector on screen. So Sasha Lord, who runs Warehouse Project and Park Life and all that. He actually has some parliamentary links in Manchester, I'm not sure what, and he's been campaigning a lot, and the mayor of Manchester, Andy something, has been doing it, and Kay Burley, the newsreader on Sky, she's been really supporting us, grilling the MPs about the nightlife sector, which is good to see because it's not, we have some representation. And I saw the clip today, and the guy, it was about the curfew, which we haven't even spoke about, and the guy was like, we have scientific evidence to back up this curfew, and then Kay Burley was like, okay, what is it? And he was like, I can't go into specifics. He literally says that.
Science is all about specifics as well. It's just data, there's no opinions in science.
It
from America.
It just doesn't make sense as a concept, does it? The idea is that, I think if anything, socially distanced raves on a larger scale are more safe than a curfew because you have them in specific places, and relatively speaking, it's not the same as having an entire strip of bars and clubs and pubs open, and then they all shut at the same time, and everyone just creates a new rush hour at 10
They will
PM.
spill into the streets at the exact same time. If anything, it creates a traffic jam. It's worse than it ever was.
If you're playing in Lakota Gardens and you've got, I was actually there the other week, and they release you table by table and such like that, more or less.
School,
So like an exam, and the thing is that was like a really safe way to leave a club if you could ever think of something.
They've smashed it. They do really
They've done
well.
incredibly well. But if you leave it to the public in a way that they've done in central London with clubs and pubs and bars and stuff.
I do understand why they're doing it, but I don't agree with it. So the reason they say they're doing it is because, you know, as people get more drunk and rowdy as the night goes on, they are more like loose, and I know that's true from like I am. I follow the rules. I follow the rules.
He was about to go off track there.
Anyway, so but I feel like the negatives of this will way outweigh the tiny extra increase from people being drunk beyond 10 p.m. or whatever it is. Like it's like I saw something and it was like 10,000 pubs are gonna shut for good just because of this curfew rule around the UK.
Yeah.
And obviously it's really more bad news for nightlife. And also, like you said, people leaving at the same time. People are literally just like starting earlier and getting drunk earlier. People are going back to houses, which arguably is a worse environment for coronavirus.
Absolutely.
You know, some random gaff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just the you got to understand as well. There's people go out to get drunk. Like that's just what we do as British people.
Culture.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's just the worst kind of like facet of society that you want to introduce into a place where you're trying to deal with a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
But people go out to get drunk and get smashed. Whereas when people go to a rave, I'd like to think most of the time we go to listen to good music, and if it's and for that reason, I think there's an argument to suggest that it'd be a lot more safe because we've actually got more of a reason to go to somewhere than just to get off our face.
I guess so.
Although
to enjoy
people
art.
would argue that's although people would argue otherwise. So
I think people go for various.
You get smashed at the theatre, you'd be surprised.
Really? Yeah.
during intermission, get yourself an ice cream.
But yeah, no. Curfews.
What would you like over the coming kind of weeks? What would you like to see as the ideal scenario for clubs?
I do think that first of all, more funding for the actual artists would help. It's good that the venues have got it, and I also kind of think it would be good to kind of maybe open up standing events at a limited capacity. Just kind of easing it in.
Yeah.
If there's a spike, then fair enough, just lock it off. Like we'll assess a different avenue. If there's a way they could ease it in, I mean, like, I'm gonna be honest, like there's a night SAR for London, whatever her name is. Like, she does fuck all.
Night SAR.
She literally does fuck all.
Communist.
She was supposed to come in.
London.
She was supposed to come in a couple of.
The
Sounds a bit horrible,
You
doesn't
mean the
it?
Nightmare? It was the Nightmare, isn't it?
No, it's like TSAR. Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah,
What?
that's what she's. I don't know why it's called it.
Labour.
So apparently she came in to save the nightlife, but she's literally done nothing. So that's not great.
That's important.
More bad news.
Well, I didn't even know about that.
No.
Could be something more to be angry about. Just finally then, festival season next year, yes or no?
I remember at the start I was like, yeah, we'll definitely be back for Halloween because I just thought about that.
That's what we all
I was like, right, I'll definitely be back for Halloween,
town.
mate. And yeah, so next year, I really don't know. Like, I really don't know. I'm not sure. I honestly don't know.
I've got tickets for.
Things are not going to be back to normal until there's a vaccine. That's all I know. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. The whole vaccine situation. I'll just be happy to get back in the clubs, even if the government has put on that bullshit.
All right. Anyway, Skepsis, thank you very much for joining us.
It's fun me socially distancing. Peace.